So this is lesson number 81 in Algebra 1, and this is called Graphical Solutions, Inconsistent Equations, and Dependent Equations. Now what we're going to do is we're going to skip the inconsistent and consistent and dependent and independent part of this lesson, and we're just going to look at graphical solutions because I think it's important to kind of review some of this. First example they give us is this one. And what we're going to do with this is we are going to graph each of these equations, this one, and then we're going to graph that one there. Alright, now there's two different ways of graphing these, and you've learned both of them. One of those ways is, let's look at just this equation right here. One of those ways is to make a table, plug any number you want in here for x, and then see what your y is. 0 plus 1 is 1. If we put in a negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Let's say we put in a 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay? And then when we graph, it's real easy to go 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 2, 1, 2, 3. And we get a line right there. Okay, so that's one way to find out where that line is. Alright, we have another way that we've worked with in the past, and that was using the formula y equals mx plus b, the slope-intercept form, where this letter here was the slope, and this letter here is the y-intercept. Now remember, the slope is at what angle does this line go? Is it real steep? Is it just barely going downhill or uphill or whatever? It's the angle there. Alright, so the y-intercept then is where does the line cross the y-axis there? Where does it cross? So let's say it crossed right here. That means my y-intercept is 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So this number here would be a plus 4. If our line crossed, let's say, down here, that means this line right, or that number right there, would be a down 5, a plus negative 5, or a negative 5. So you can use the y-intercept form, or you can use this handy-dandy little table here to solve it. Well, let's look at it using the y-intercept form at this point, since we just did the table, and let's look at the same equation here. So we're going to look at this equation, and we're going to use the y equals mx plus b. So if we have this equation in this form, which means we have a y, like we do here, an equal, like we do here, an x here, and a number in front of the x, where in this case that number in front of the x is a 1, plus another number with no other letter, which is right here, 1, then we can graph it just looking at this. And what we do is we first of all look at this last number. The last number is a 1. So we find a 1 on this y-axis. So in this case our 1 is right there. That's our y-intercept. So we've got one of our points. In order to draw a line, we need 2. Alright, then we look at the slope. And the slope is our letter m, and it's written as a fraction always as the letter y over the letter x. So that means whatever this number is, we're going to make it a fraction. So the fraction of, to make 1 a fraction is to put it over 1. Anytime you have a whole number like 3, 4, 5, 6, if you want to make it into a fraction, you put it over 1. So this is my y and this is my x. So that means that when I start here, I go this far on the y-axis, which the y-axis is right here. So because it's plus, I go up 1. And then this x says once I go up 1, I go over 1. And I go over to the positive. I go right 1 because this is a positive number. So I go up 1 over 1. And when I go up 1 over 1, I end up right there. I draw my line, and I end up with the exact same line here as I got when I did this table here. So you can do it either way. It doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and leave that there because that's the graph of this first one. And, well, in fact, let's get rid of everything. So I've got some room to work for my next one here. Alright, so that, let's leave that there. That is the graph of my first equation right here. Now let's look at this one. And I'm going to use the slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b, because it's already in that form. It's written as y equals negative 2x plus 4. So notice that it is written that way. The negative 2 is my m, and the 4 is my b. So again, the first thing I look at is the b, the last number, and it's a 4. Where does it cross the y-axis? At 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's where it crosses. Now, I change my slope to a fraction, okay? And that is, the top number is my y, the bottom number is my x. So that means that I start at my 4, and I do what it says here. When I'm on my 4, right here, it says go negative 2. So negative 2 means down, positive 2 means up. So negative 2, I go down. Let's do that with black. Down 1, 2, and it puts me there. Then it says go over 1. So that means go over 1 to the right. So now I have 2 points, and I can draw a line just like that. Alright, so what I'm looking for is where those 2 lines cross. Notice those 2 lines cross at over 1, up 2. That ends up being the answer of what these 2 equations have in common. They cross at 0.12. So again, that means that's where those 2 points cross, and what they have in common is 0.12. And that's what you're looking for. That's the answer you're trying to get. Alright, so let's look at example number 81.2. And these can be a little tricky. We don't do a lot with these, which is kind of nice, but I'm doing them because I want you to be familiar with, what's going on here. Alright, so let's look at 81.2. Y equals 2 and y equals x. Alright, those are kind of weird, so we're not even going to put them in slope-intercept form. We're not going to use the y equals mx plus b because we don't really have a big long equation in order to do that. But we do have, if you look at this one right here, when we have y equals mx plus b, what are we missing? We're missing this whole part. We have the number, we're just missing this whole part. So that means that the m must be 0 in order to cancel this out. 0 times anything this is going to be 0. So if the slope is 0, that means it is a horizontal line somewhere on this graph. Well, this number here tells me where that horizontal is on this graph. So this tells me when I don't have an x, that means that our slope is 0, that this is 0 to cancel this out, so we just have this number here. So I've got a horizontal line here whenever the slope is 0, but where is it? Well, it's at 2. So I go up 2, and I draw my horizontal line. Alright, let's look at this one. Y equals x. Well, let's just make our table here. If y equals x, that means they're the same number. So 0 and 0. So I can graph that point. 2 and 2. So I can graph that point. 6 and 6. Counting here. Alright, which gives us that point. So we have a line for that second graph that looks like that. So what I'm interested in, where do they cross? It looks like they cross at over 2, up 2. So that would be my answer then to example 81.2. Alright, let's continue on here. Isn't this just like the most fun you ever had in your life? Alright, let's look at the next one. Y equals x plus 2. And they also give us y equals x minus 1. Okay, if you'll notice here, they're both in the form y equals mx plus b. Because here's my b, and here's my mx. Here's my b, and here's my mx. Alright, so let's go ahead and use that formula. I'd like you to learn how to use that formula pretty well, because in the future that's the one that's going to be the easiest for you to use. So might as well get used to it. Alright, so when we have our y equals x plus 2, there's a 1 there. Okay, so again, we take our 2 and we graph where that is on the y-axis, right there. Then we change our number in front of the x to a fraction. This is the y, this is the x. So this says we start at our or our y-intercept, which is what we have right there, and it says go up or down 1. Well, since it's positive, we're going to go up 1, and then our x value is 1, so it says go over 1. So there's our line right there, right through those 2 points. Okay, so then it says, we're going to look at the next one here, the second equation, y equals x, and let's put a 1 there, minus 1. Okay, so again, we're going to start at our y-intercept where it crosses y, and that's going to be negative 1. So let's graph negative 1 there on the y-axis. And this again is, my slope is 1 over 1, which is my y over x. So I'm going to, from this point here, my y-intercept, wherever I start right here, I'm going to go up 1 over 1. So I'm going to go up 1 over 1, and that's the point I want. So what do I get here? I get a parallel line. Parallel lines, what do you know about parallel lines? They never intersect. When they never intersect, that means they don't cross, which means there's no answer to this problem. Because remember what I said, the answer is if we have 2 lines, what I'm interested in is where they cross. Well, if they don't cross, there is no answer. So you either write no solution, or you write this symbol right there, which is a symbol meaning the null set. It does not mean the answer is 0. It means there is no answer. And that's what a parallel line means. Alright? So let's keep going, and we'll do one more here. Well, maybe we'll do 2 more here. And I'll start that on the next video.